so if you clicked on this video, you want to know your study tips for how to pass boards and what happened with me and what not to do. So keep watching. For my program, we finish all of our didactic work like in the spring before we get ready to graduate. So I finished all my didactic work like in January, and we graduate and finish kind of in May, but we don't finish clinical work until August, if that makes sense. So our program would technically let us sit for boards in July if we pass PETE in May. So keep that in mind for my strategy and what I was doing. So I started studying basically like a year out, and when I finished all my didactic work, I was pretty much just going to clinic and studying incrementally for boards to take the PETE in May, because if we didn't make a certain score in the PETE, we couldn't take it in July. And I was really adamant about taking boards in July because I wanted to do travel therapy, and in order to work as a travel therapist, you can't do a temporary license study plan. So I was taking like all of these like tests and doing like I was supposed to, and like studying like 2-3 hours or whatever a day to try and like hit all the like what you're supposed to do things. And I forgot to go back and self-analyze like how I'm actually doing. About 10 practice tests, and I passed all of the PETEs that I took and did fairly well on like most of the practice tests except for therapy ed. They're a little bit hard. Doing well on the practice test, I was like, okay, I'm about ready for the actual test. Like I'm making the marks that I'm supposed to get on the. So I wasn't going back and actually looking at like my lowest subjects and where I needed to kind of re-up and beef up my studying. I was ill prepared in that manner. So the PETE is really good at projecting like how you do subject wise. For me, it didn't really project how I do on the exam, because I got so wrapped up in looking at all of this knowledge that I didn't learn in school that had to do with like other systems, intake and everything, that I wasn't focusing on like my big subjects like musculoskeletal, neuro, and cardio-pulm. So because I kind of slacked off in those subjects and I was like, oh, I'm making a high enough score and these look good, I neglected those areas. That's where I think I went wrong with my first attempt with taking boards. So fast forward, after I kind of picked up the pieces and when I went to retake the test the second time, it took a while to kind of realize what actually went wrong and to kind of clear my mind on that front. So in my new study plan, I only ended up taking about 3 practice tests. I ended up taking another 2 PETEs, and I retook an old therapy ed, and then I would do an exam analysis where I could find out why I was missing those questions that I got wrong, whether it be for lack of knowledge or if I just didn't understand the question that I was reading. So that helped a lot to really get an understanding for how I was test taking and like strategically improve like different areas of my testing weaknesses. When I retook the test, you have to have that 3-month period between when you go to retake it. So I didn't even study that first month. I decided to do a 2-month study plan instead, and I was only studying and working part-time a few hours of the week. So I wanted to just buckle down and study for a simulated exam period amount of time. I would study about 4 or 5 hours a day right in the morning when I woke up, and I did that every day starting with my study plan up until like 2 weeks before the exam. For the first few weeks, I was just going over those weaker subjects. I was just reading through my Scorebuilders book. Scorebuilders is the main thing that I used. I did cardio-pulm, musculoskeletal, and neuro, just reading sections from that book and taking notes in my notebook as I went along. Made sure to make flashcards of all of the reoccurring like subject matter. And so when I got to the last couple of weeks right before the exam, I just went through all of those notes that I took reading and all of my flashcards to really drill in those things that you know and that are foundational, but you can get really tripped up when you're taking the exam and you're just like, is that the dermatome or is it not? So I wanted to really drill in those things to make sure it was no doubting myself when I was taking the exam, because that test taking anxiety can really throw you off when you know the material. When I was studying the first time around, I just had tons and tons of material, so I just kind of give you the rundown of those and you can kind of pick. I did the Scorebuilders Basecamp. There's a way you can actually end up doing that for free if you're the first person in your class to get to them. And if you want to know more about that, just leave a comment or I can make a separate video to get into that. So I did Scorebuilders Basecamp. It's really baseline though, and really foundational type questions. I didn't spend a whole lot of time there just because I didn't feel like it was asking like second level, third level enough questions to kind of prepare me, but it's a good place to start. I did the free apps for studying, so I did about 3 apps that gave me a question a day. The NPTE Final Frontier, the PT 365, and then I also did, it's another one called PT Pocket Prep. So I did the 3 of those. They gave me a question a day. I also paid for the PT Pocket Prep, which has a database of like 400, 600 questions, and you can make exams up to 100 questions to sit and take. So I kind of went through that like early on too, just to kind of like get in the mindset of like questions and getting exposed to material that I hadn't seen before. The school that I went to, they gave us 2 prep books that we could do. So we did Scorebuilders prep book, which gives you 3 free exams with that. And we did the Therapy Ed prep book, and this gave you 3 exams. With this one, the exams were a little bit harder in there, so I felt like it prepared you for like that feeling of anxiety when you're actually taking the exam. I really got into my study plan when I was trying to get ready for the PET to begin with. I did do NPTE Final Frontier, their prep course class, and I did that for free as well, and I can give you information on that in a separate video as well. So that, I did the whole, the full live course, so it's like a $500 course. They give you tons of materials and resources. They have classes like 3 times a week, and they give you assignments, and you get 2 free exams with that course as well. So I had tons of materials to choose from, and I think my biggest thing was I was just trying to incorporate too many of them, and just had in my mind like I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to, so I'm gonna score what I'm supposed to, and kind of forgetting to take that step back and really look at how my analytics are with my test taking. The school did give us access to another database called TrueLearn that has different questions on there. Those questions you can set up where if you miss it, they'll text you and remind you of that information. You don't need a bunch of materials. There are plenty of things that you can choose from. Just to sum up, basically when I studied for the exam the second time, the only book that I really used was the Scorebuilders book, and then I did kind of review some things in the Final Frontier course since I had access, and I only took 3 exams and I was able to pass. My score went up about 45 points from my first attempt to my second attempt. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to make in a nutshell what happened, and if you're in the same situation, just take a minute to kind of like regroup, recuperate, and relax. I went on a vacation and kind of took my like self-pity moment, and then I went back into studying, because it can be really frustrating if you're having to do all of that all over again. Just let me know if you have any more questions. I can make another video on how to get access to some of those free courses that I mentioned, the Final Frontier, the Basecamp, TrueLearn, things like that. If you're interested, just send me a message or comment and I will make a video about that, or just tell whoever asked. Don't forget to check out the description box. I'll list all of the materials that I talked about. For me, flashcards and making notes really helped a lot to really study that foundational stuff. That's it. Good luck. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped. Bye.